Hey there, and welcome to this trip report. I've got a long day ahead of me. Right now, I'm on board Air Canada Flight 419 from Montreal to Toronto. Later this evening, I'll be connecting on Air Canada Flight 856 from Toronto to London Heathrow. My flight from Montreal departed on time at 4 p.m, and after arriving in Toronto, I should have just over 3 hours before my flight to London. In this trip report, I'll discuss the COVID-19 rules around traveling to the UK, and of course, I'll review the full experience in Air Canada Economy Class over to London. It's 5:15 p.m. now, and I just stepped off my flight from Montreal here in Toronto, and I'm ready to head over to the international area of Terminal 1. Because both flights are with Air Canada, that means I don't have to change terminals here in Toronto, and I don't even have to re-clear security. My checked luggage is ticketed all the way from Montreal to London, so I don't have to collect it and recheck it here either. The walk from the domestic part of the terminal over to the international area is fairly long, as the domestic area is on one concourse and the international area is at the end of an entirely separate concourse. The journey takes you to the upper level above the domestic and US departure gates before heading down to the E-gates at the international area. This area is only for connecting passengers with departures boards, maps, and service desks to help you figure out exactly where you need to go. Exiting this connecting area, you join everyone else from Pearson security screening on the long walk down to the international gates. As I continue my trek, let's talk a bit about the documents required for travel to the UK. This video was filmed on October 21st, 2021, and at the time when entering the UK as a fully vaccinated traveler, you were required to bring proof of a booking for a Day 2 arrival COVID test, and you must have filled out the UK Passenger Locator Form. As a fully vaccinated traveler, quarantine is waived unless your arrival test comes back positive. For the arrival test, you have to pre-book it and take the test between your arrival day and Day 2 after your arrival, and you have to provide the booking reference number on your locator form. Up to October 24th, it had to be a PCR test, however from the 24th onwards, antigen tests were accepted, but that then reverted back to PCR in November. There are different options for how the test can be completed, including at home or at a test center. I paid for an at-home PCR self-swab with the provider Cured for $155 Canadian. On Cured's website, it says they'll mail the test kit to the address where I'm staying at in the UK on or before Day 2 after my arrival. They also include the return postage, so after taking the swab, I simply send it back to get analyzed. For the passenger locator form, you can fill it out anytime within 48 hours prior to your arrival in the UK, and it includes details about where you're staying and your travel history in the past few weeks. As I descended the escalator, there was an Air Canada agent at the bottom answering travelers' questions. Since I came into Toronto on a domestic flight, none of my documents for travel were verified in Montreal. On the Air Canada app, there was the ability to submit a negative pre-departure test result, but pre-departure tests are not required for travel to the UK, so this was irrelevant in my case. Upon speaking with the agent, she told me to line up at the Air Canada customer service counter and get my documents checked there, as they would not be doing it at the gate during boarding. I had all my documentation printed, including my proof of vaccination status, and the agent I spoke to was able to go through them all fairly quickly. She then made a note on my boarding pass that the verification was complete and I was good to go. From when I arrived at the start of the customer service line to when I was finished being helped, it took about 30 minutes in total. Thankfully, I had lots of extra time built into my connection, but something to keep in mind if you don't have quite as much time. For those of you with status, there didn't appear to be any priority service line in use here, so everyone was forced to queue together. And for travelers who start their international travel in Toronto and don't come from a domestic connection, your documents will get checked during check-in prior to clearing security. It's 6:20 p.m. now, and my flight is scheduled to depart at 8:40 p.m. from gate E75. The gate area is fairly quiet right now, with seating available on both sides. Most of the seating consists of restaurant-style tables and chairs, with each seat having its own iPad for ordering food, checking flight info, playing games, or reading the news. Taking a look at the aircraft shuttling me across the Atlantic this evening, I'll be on board this 14-year-old Boeing 777-300ER, which was delivered to Air Canada in July 2007. It's flown with the airline continuously since, except for a brief storage from July 2020 to September 2021, during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Taking a wander around the terminal space, there's a large food court area known as the Park just across from my gate, with several different fast food stalls. There are also sit-down restaurants lining the outer wall of the terminal, sandwiched between the gates. I decided to sit down at Lee Kitchen, which is an Asian fusion cuisine restaurant near gate E73. This restaurant is also a priority pass location, meaning members can get up to $37 off their bill. It's 7:45 p.m. now, and I've just finished dinner and I'm heading back over to the gate. Boarding is due to start at 7:50 p.m. and it's very crowded already. My flight to London is boarding through gate E75 with departure scheduled for 8:40 p.m. and an Air Canada flight to Dublin is boarding through gate E74 at the same time with departure scheduled for 8:35 p.m. The boarding doors of these two gates are located beside each other, and with around 300 passengers each, that's a lot of people to cram into one area. Boarding for my flight got underway about 5 minutes behind schedule, starting with Zone 1. Air Canada boards their aircraft by zone, with Zone 1 for elite status travelers and business class, Zone 2 for premium economy, and Zones 3 through 6 for economy travelers. I'm boarding with Zone 3 today, which is the first of the economy boarding groups. To board the aircraft, it's a simple passport check and a boarding pass scan, and the agent also confirms that your UK entry documents have been checked previously. You're required to wear a mask at all times in the terminal, but are asked to lower the mask when having your passport checked during the boarding process in order to better identify you. After moving past the very hectic boarding area, I'm on my way down the jet bridge. We're boarding the aircraft through only one door today, instead of having a dedicated boarding door for business class. Stepping on board, I'm in seat 42K for this flight, which is located off the aisle on the right side of the aircraft. After crossing over through the galley, I made my way down through the business class cabin first, which consists of 40 lie-flat pod-style seats in a 1-2-1 seating configuration. Next, I passed through the premium economy cabin, which consists of 24 extra reclining seats in a 2-4-2 configuration. And finally, into the economy class cabin, which consists of 336 standard seats in a 3-4-3 configuration. The economy cabin is split into 3 main sections, each separated by galleys or lavatories. Row 42, where I'm seated for this flight, is just aft of the wing in the second section of the economy cabin. 42K is the window seat on the right side of the aircraft. The seats have a slimline design with a fabric surface and leather-covered headrest. At a pitch of 31 inches and a width of 17 inches, it's nothing terribly spacious, but at 5'10", I'll fit just fine. Storage space under the seat is decent, though from my window seat, the leg of the seat in front appears to get in the way a bit. Each seat is equipped with a seatback entertainment screen, which we'll tour later in the flight. Below the entertainment screen is a tray table that folds out from the seatback. The tray table is mounted on rails such that it can slide outwards towards you. And below the tray table is a pouch where the provided reading materials are stored. The provided materials include the safety information card for the Boeing 777-300ER and a couple air sickness bags. Pillows and blankets for the overnight flight were provided at the seat when we boarded, which I'm sure I'll be making use of later on. In terms of connectivity at the seat, on the lower edge of the entertainment screen is a headphone jack for connecting to the system audio and a USB 3.0 port for charging. Underneath the seat row are AC power outlets in between the seats, with 2 outlets shared between the row of 3 seats. Testing out my seat's recline, it's actually fairly decent, though given how tight each row is, I would most certainly be crushing the person behind me. The headrest on the seat is adjustable and has folding sides to provide better support. There are armrests on both sides of the seat, with the one in between my seat and the middle seat being movable. The button to control the seat recline is the silver button located on the inside of the armrest to my left. Now that we've toured the seat, let's talk a bit about the cabin in general. Overall, it's quite modern and updated, though the slight yellowish tinge from the cabin lighting gives it an older feel than something like the 787 Dreamliner. The ceilings are high, and the overhead bins stow away up into the ceiling, which helps make it feel more spacious and open. The amenities at each seat, including entertainment and power connectivity, are up to date, and everything seems to be in working order so far.
35,000 feet, we're 6:15 here, 6:43, and total en route time about 12 minutes.
An announcement from the cockpit while boarding was still underway. The expected flight time over to London tonight is 6 hours and 15 minutes. It's not a super full flight this evening, so there's plenty of space left in the overhead bins. It also helps that the bins are huge on this aircraft and are able to fit even the largest carry-on rollerboard bags. 8:55 p.m. now, and we're 15 minutes past our scheduled departure time. The crew have announced that we were waiting on some passengers who were delayed in Pearson Customs, but everyone is now on board, all the baggage is loaded, and we're ready to go. 2 minutes later, and we're pushing back from the gate, about 17 minutes behind schedule. I also managed to score an empty seat next to me, so it'll be nice to have some extra space on this overnight flight.
Anyone around your cabin crew will immediately ensure the safety of the device. Thank you.
Taxiing away from Terminal 1, we're headed out to runway 23 for takeoff this evening. Departure from this runway will take us out to the west side of the airport before a 180-degree turn to begin our track towards Europe. I have to say, the blue cabin lighting is 100 times better than the colors they had during boarding. It feels like an entirely different aircraft. At 9:15 p.m. as we line up on runway 23, ready to power away from Pearson Airport. As we climb away from Toronto and bask in the latest cabin theme color, let's take a look at the entertainment screen. The screen is a decent size at 8.9 inches, and the quality is really good. The on-demand content loaded on the system includes movies, TV shows, music, audiobooks, and podcasts. You can also view the food service menu for tonight's flight and the beverages available as well. There's also a dedicated kids section with movies, TV shows, games, and music targeted to kids. You can also view sections with information on Air Canada's fleet, their partner organizations, and their frequent flyer program, Aeroplan. Moving on to the in-flight maps next, you can choose to view the maps in either picture-in-picture or full-screen mode. The graphics detail of the maps is really good, and there are tons of different viewing options and flight information available. In the settings menu for the system, you can control the display brightness and system volume, and also turn off the screen or put the graphics into night mode. On the top right corner of the screen are controls for the overhead reading light and the attendant call button. The reading light is located on the overhead panel along with personal adjustable air conditioning vents. About 25 minutes after takeoff, the cabin crew distributed welcome back cookies to all passengers. They also handed out complimentary earbuds for the in-flight entertainment system, along with Clean Care Plus kits. Air Canada distributes these kits to all passengers on all of their flights as a part of their commitment to passenger safety during the pandemic. The kits you receive on domestic and international flights are marked differently, so I assume the contents is also different. Taking a look at what's provided in this international kit, we have some individual packets of disinfecting hand wipes, a multi-layer face mask, and a bottle of hand sanitizer. Other than the larger amount of hand sanitizer that's provided in this kit, the contents is essentially the same as what's given out on domestic flights.
And you please keep your face covering on until the entire row you're sitting at has been served.
1 hour after departure, and the first meal service of the flight is now underway. Although it's almost 10:30 p.m. Toronto time, this is a dinner service, and the main meal options are seasoned chicken with Caesar sauce, roasted potatoes and vegetables, or cavatappi pasta in a pesto cream sauce with red peppers. I opted for the pasta, which I've had on an Air Canada transatlantic flight before and remember it being decent. Along with the main meal, on the tray I received a bottle of water, a container of celeriac salad as an appetizer, a bread roll with butter, and a chocolate brownie for dessert. Air Canada specializes in ice-cold, rock-solid bread rolls, and they certainly delivered on that with tonight's meal. Yum! The tray was also provided with a cutlery packet containing a plastic knife, fork and spoon, a serviette, and a salt and pepper packet. Immediately after the dinner tray was served, another set of cabin crew came through with beverages, including complimentary wine. Honestly, the pasta was not great, fairly dry and even burnt in some areas, and generally flavorless overall. I probably ate about half and then moved on. The brownie was tasty, nothing special, but better than the pasta by a long shot. With dinner done and cleared away, we're now cruising over Newfoundland in eastern Canada and will shortly begin our Atlantic crossing. Taking a walk to the back of the aircraft, here there are 2 lavatories along with the main economy galley. There are also 5 other lavatories closer to the front of the cabin for economy passengers as well. The lavatories at the rear are decently sized and fairly clean and bright. In addition to the liquid hand soap, there are also individual packets of hand sanitizer provided in a dispenser next to the sink. Leaving the lavatory and heading back to my seat, everyone is settled in for the short night ahead. Back at my seat, it's time to get comfy. The blanket provided at the seat when we boarded isn't super soft, but it'll do the trick. After working on my laptop for an hour, we're now halfway through the flight and I'm gonna try to get some sleep. Two hours later, after a fairly restless sleep, the cabin lights are back on and the crew are coming through with the breakfast meal service. The breakfast meal is a box containing a pot of yogurt and a packaged croissant. It also comes with another cutlery packet containing a plastic fork, knife and spoon, and a serviette and a salt and pepper packet. The croissant is unsurprisingly just like the bread roll from dinner, ice cold and rock solid. Overall, not the greatest. As I finish up my breakfast, we can just begin to see the sun rising ahead of us in the east. The crew then came through with a drink service in which I opted for an orange juice. Tea and coffee were also available. We're cruising just off the east coast of Ireland now, above St. George's Strait, as we cross over to Wales. The cabin crew are coming through collecting garbage now as they prepare the cabin for arrival.
Flight attendants, 30 minutes to landing.
With 23 minutes to go, we're now on our descent towards Heathrow Airport.
Self-quarantine. If you have been in or transited through any country on the red list within the previous 10 days.
The crew also made an announcement regarding the various entry requirements and rules after arrival for both vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals. At the time of filming, the rules for vaccinated travelers are that you have to take a PCR test between day 0 and day 2 after arrival, and for unvaccinated travelers, you have to take the day 2 test and a day 8 test. Additionally, if you were in or transited through any country that's on the red list in the past 10 days, then you have to quarantine in a managed quarantine facility for the first 10 days after arrival in the UK, regardless of your vaccination status. Breaking through the cloud layer on descent, our approach to runway 27 left is taking us around the south side of Heathrow Airport and the City of London, and also offered some great views of the downtown core as we lined up with the runway. After touching down at 8:35 a.m., it's a roughly 5-minute taxi over to our parking stand at Terminal 2. Heathrow Airport consists of 4 active terminals numbered 2 through 5, with Terminal 1 no longer in use. Terminal 2 is used by all Star Alliance carriers that serve Heathrow Airport.
Cabin crew, there's Rebel.
Please cross-check and confirm. Thank you. Thank you.
After disembarking, our first stop is passport control, which is about a 10 to 15 minute walk from exiting the aircraft. After that, we head to baggage claim and then through customs and to the exit. On our walk through the arrival space, there are hand sanitizer stations every couple minutes. In general, masks are not mandatory in public spaces in the UK at the time of filming, however they are required in airports. Given the lax policy in the rest of the country though, mask compliance within the terminal is fairly low from my current and brief observations. As we near passport control, there's lots of signage explaining the arrivals process and the different lines for different passports. Canadian passport holders are lumped in with UK, EU, US, and several other passports as being able to use the automated passport scanners. Finally reaching passport control, it was decently busy and took about 20 minutes to clear, mostly because many passengers struggled to figure out the automated scanners. I didn't speak to an agent at all, and no one checked my documentation here, including my vaccination status or locator form, but that was all checked before I boarded the flight. After exiting passport control at 9:20 a.m., about 40 minutes after we parked at our gate, I'm now in the baggage claim hall. Bags from my flight are due out on carousel number 9, however after reaching it, I found that all the bags had already been delivered and offloaded from the belt. After tracking down my suitcase, which I'm glad to see has made it, it's time to pass through customs and go get my rental car. Overall, that arrivals process was much easier than I had anticipated, with no nasty wait times like I've read about in the news. Thanks for watching, now for some comments on the experience. International travel during the COVID-19 pandemic certainly has some added hoops to jump through in terms of testing and documents to carry with you, but in general, I found this trip from Canada to the UK to be a fairly painless process. That being said, I did a lot of research in advance to make sure I had all the right documents, so I'd recommend checking the rules of the country you're traveling to in detail to make sure that the process is smooth for you as well. In terms of the flight, Air Canada delivered once again with a reasonably comfortable economy class product, and I even managed to cop a couple hours of sleep, but I have to say the food services on this trip were subpar. Aside from the main meal being tasteless and dry, it blows my mind that Air Canada can't get dinner rolls right. Now, I may be fixating on this a little too much, but there are so many European carriers that provide warm bread rolls, and in my eyes it makes a world of a difference. All in all, I've survived my first international flight since March of 2020, and now we'll see if I can survive the rest of this trip. Stay tuned!